heat. Capture the heat. And throw it.
Welcome to a Fireside chat. This is Ethan Boyd. I'm welcoming.
Oh, that's right. No, I'm just kidding. I'm Jared Boyd, this idiot's brother.
Okay. We're going to start. First off, how are you doing?
Doing all right. It's Friday, so,
What classes did you have today?
nothing.
So wait, do you usually do your senior project on Fridays?
I do my senior project just all the time. It's just every single day. It's
So-
a whole... Go ahead.
I was going to say, talk me through how the senior project works.
Oh, God. So I think you have one, too. You told me about it. It's called, the capstone project.
Yeah.
It's the thing that just says, it's proof that, you've taken everything you've learned up to this point and you've made it an actual project. Well, in engineering, we, at least at NC State, it's called Senior Design Project. Every engineering department has it, and it's different across all of them. But for most of the departments, it's usually something simple, 2 semesters. You have 1 semester where you get assigned a project, usually by a company that is interested in up-and-comers in the industry, and they want you to look into something. It could be something related to a new chemical process that might be more environmentally friendly, or a new, for mechanical engineers, maybe some kind of new equipment that could change something within the
More
industry.
effective or something.
Yeah, and so the idea is you do some research, and then in the second semester you run kind of some economic analysis and look into some of the processes more deeply, and then you present on it saying, based on our research, this could be a viable strategy for X or Y or whatever.
Yeah.
In paper science, they go a little bit further with how they take it. It's kind of a bad and good way. We're given an actual mill that exists in usually the US, I believe, and then a project that could very well be proposed at said mill. And our goal, just as if we were any kind of actual engineer working at that mill, would be to do research, model the situation, and come back and say, hey, this project is looking good economically, so we should pursue it more, or no, it's looking bad, we should probably stop and look for other opportunities.
Gotcha.
So in my case, my mill is making printing paper, but printing paper right now is highly competitive because it's declining due to digitalization.
Yeah.
So you need the highest quality technologies to make the best printing paper. Otherwise, you start going out of business. And so since my mill isn't highest quality, it's looking to transition to making a different product with different fibers, specifically recycled fibers, because those are starting to become cheaper nowadays. So
I gotcha.
Yeah.
That's
Lots of
pretty
work.
good.
Yeah, it's.
Do you think it's because you mentioned how it's more in depth? Do you think it's because you're in more of a specific engineering? Like mechanical engineering can be applied to hundreds of different things, but you are paper science engineering.
I think that has a part of it, because if you, the technologies involved, if we were to do a standard engineering degree, I say standard because you don't really hear about paper science, but if you're in something like chemical, like you said, chemical is broad, right? When it comes to paper, I had this conversation with a friend, is that all our classes seem so much harder, so much more specific, but that's because there's only one area you're really learning.
Yeah.
The mill is kind of a similar box no matter where you go. It's you're going to have these processes and barely anything's going to change between them.
Yeah.
So we're easily more able to go into what changes might happen slightly between each of those processes. So yeah, that's probably an idea. There's not really enough new technologies or anything like that for them to make 7 or so projects for us to use. So instead they do what they decided to take it one step further, tie it in with the fact that NC State is very professional based, at least with paper science. They're so involved with getting us jobs in industry that they decided they would make
They have a good pathway set up.
Actual preparation for, once you're in industry, this is something you might have to do. So we're going to just show you what it is, have you do it, and then that way you're more prepared when you do it, for real.
Yeah, you would say it's more, they have a better pathway. You take the classes, you meet with the industry leaders and the people in the industry, and you get internships, and then by the time you graduate, you're out.
Yeah.
You're into it.
They set you up. They've got their own career fair. They have a whole spreadsheet every year for companies looking to hire within the fall semester. They have several opportunities for mock interviews, resume reviews. They want you to get that experience. They will like throw as many companies as they can at you, and it's your job to go out there and get experience. And then as a result, because you hopefully got so much experience, you usually have an easier time just going from graduation to actual career. So
yeah. One thing I am interested in hearing, because I remember your freshman year of college, you were like, I remember Dad and you coming back from paper science engineering, and it was like you guys found like El Dorado. It was like amazing. You guys were like, this is the perfect thing in life. So like, if you could go back and tell freshman year Jared something, what would you tell him?
Prepare for the worst. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, that's just the typical college thing. Yeah. Everyone should
tell their freshman self, this is gonna be rough, buddy. But I mean, it's kind of true. It's kind of understandable. You never know what you're getting into. What you're saying, like, if there's one thing paper science was good at, it was sweet talking people. Like, holy shit.
They dangled the carrot right in front of all the freshmen.
They're just like, they knew what they were talking about. You come in and like some of the main points they bring up are, we've got good job placement, we've got good money, and we've got scholarships. That's everything a college student wants to hear. Paper, what's that? I don't care. It's got money.
Even more, it's what the parents want to hear. Because the parents there, they're like, my kid's going to have a job out of college?
Yeah.
Okay, say less.
I remember Dad at one point, like, we separated into groups, the like kids and the parents or whatever. And I remember we reconvened for lunch or whatever. Dad comes back to me and we were talking about what we heard. And I remember one of the things he said, he was like, someone said that this is like the MIT of paper or something. And I was like, honestly, with what I'm seeing, I believe it.
So like specifically with paper science, and well, it's more chemical. You were very good in chemistry and math in high school. Like what about those subjects do you like enjoy?
Oh, that's hard to say. I mean, when it comes to math. I mean, when it comes to math and sciences, I mean, the most basic thing is just that they're exact to some degree, right?
Like there is an answer for a certain problem.
Input will almost net you the same output almost every single time. Yeah, you might be off by a little bit, but like you account for error whenever you usually make calculations. But like something like English or languages or just humanities in general, a lot of things can be somewhat more open-ended, so it's a lot harder to get a good grasp of concepts for me. Mm-hmm. So when I'm in chemistry and they say like, oh, if you put like benzene with this acid or something like that, you will combine them and make this like acidic mixture or something like that, and that's it. That's all you have to know. Is just, this is how it works. And you can go into details of like, oh, this works because acid attacks here, things rearrange, boom, you're done. It's all kinds of things, and there's more detail, but you'd never expect it like, benzene reacts with acid, makes this. Okay, but this time, same conditions, same setup and everything, benzene actually doesn't like acid anymore.
Yeah, the curtains are blue, so the benzene doesn't like it anymore.
The benzene didn't like the lighting as much, so it decided it would just stay the same.
Yeah,
stuff like that. Just the kind of the exactness. It was a lot easier for me to hold on to. So like, it's just easier for me to learn. And I mean, who's not going to go to something that they can find easy enjoyment from learning? Like when you learn something, you feel so good about yourself. You're like, oh man, I'm getting smarter. But like in English, I would feel like I'm getting there, and then I get something completely wrong because the situation is like slightly tweaked or something like that. And I'm like, well, guess I'm dumb.
You're definitely more out of the family. You're definitely the more quantitative kid. I'm definitely the more qualitative kid. No. Now that being said, Rollsville was like brand new when you got there. So like, how was that? Like, talk me through that experience. Like, you went to effectively a brand new high school. Like, they were still unwrapping it.
I mean, it's really hard for me to make a benchmark analysis because that was the only high school I went to, obviously.
Yeah.
But I mean, I could definitely tell after I got to college, some things were up. I mean, you talk to people and they had opportunities. Like one of my friends took like AP Physics C or whatever, whereas I took AP Physics Algebra, which was the precursor to Physics C. And so he got to just ignore the first physics class that college students have to take, which, I mean, I'm so jealous of him. That class sucked. But we didn't have that opportunity because, I mean, we're still new. Programs are developing. We don't have as much interest in it or anything like that. But I mean, our AP Physics program was like non-existent. We went in with like 20 students. At the end of week 1, we had 10. which technically wasn't allowed, but they can't just cancel the class while it's going on. So we had basically no one. When we got to the AP exam, it's like 8 people or something, six to 8 people. I can't remember the exact number, but it was a stark contrast to like the AP environmental exam, which, I mean, way more people, of course, are going to take AP environmental. It's like the most common one at any university. But that classroom for AP testing was full. AP physics, no one. We were able to spread out completely throughout the room if we wanted to. And so, I mean, when the idea popped up from our teacher of like, would anyone be interested in continuing to AP Physics C or whatever I think it was, where this actually could be something used in like engineering credit or whatever like that, he couldn't get enough people to do it. You'd have to do it like at some other college because
it was one of those you might have to go to another high school just to take it.
There were some other APs that I heard about that primarily would just be like GEPs, just some general education, like Englishes or something, at least in my case, that I couldn't take. But for the most part, I mean, most of the classes I would be interested in AP-wise were there, so.
Yeah. What about the school, like, I know you weren't exactly a socialite, but like socially, because obviously you went to a university that's been around for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
But like, how do you think what was that change like? Because you went into a high school that didn't really have an identity. Like, we weren't good at anything.
Yeah.
We didn't do anything, and it wasn't like we were bad. We just weren't anything. So what was that like?
Just always like room to develop. I mean, I just handled it. I wouldn't say the same as I always have, because I mean, at middle school, I was still figuring out who the hell I was, and I mean, it continues into high school. But I have a better idea of my interests in high school. Middle school, you know, I discovered video games like halfway through middle school, then started realizing I liked them, and then finally found a group for it like near the last 2 years of middle school. So when I go to high school, I mean, it's kind of the same thing. One of my first classes, because at the time I thought I would go into something either game related or computers or something.
Yeah.
One of my first classes was like a computer, I can't remember what it was. It was like a computer class just about like 3D modeling, some basics of animation, but also touching base on some other programs like Word, Excel, kind of like an overarching thing that could lead into potential computer degrees in all kinds of fields. And that class was the easiest way to like find people, because basically everyone there was at least somewhat like-minded to me. They're interested in video games. Beyond that, it was just slowly accumulating a group of friends. I mean, as you take classes that you're interested in, you're going to probably find people that are similar. You take math and science, you're going to find people, one, that like math and science, but two, probably came to like math and science maybe for similar reasons. So most of the people I met that I ended up kind of actually meshing with was just people from math and science, because I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just people that play video games end up liking math and science. I don't know, some weird connection there.
Getting all your calculations for min-maxing.
You can't play video games unless you can calculate the attack.
I mean, competitive Pokemon is a prime example of that. No, but I always thought it was interesting going, because I went after, and obviously the school had developed at some point, but I mean, it was very much still in its youth, like as a school. I always found it interesting is like, at first I thought I wouldn't get a bunch of friends, and then I realized once I started taking APs, you're kind of around the same group. Like the same general group of kids takes all the APs. And so like, I know you didn't take an AP sophomore year, but like from sophomore year on, it was like I was pretty much all my classes were with the same kids, or I'd see them every semester.
Yeah, and it definitely helps that the school, even in your year, was still kind of building up like the population of students. Because, I mean, you only had one to two sections of an AP class. Yeah. So you basically had like a 50-50 of seeing like X person in all of your AP classes from then on. So, and yeah, like you said, everyone takes an AP. Like if someone's going to take one AP, they're usually going to take more. Because those are the people interested in going to college and they want to get ahead of the program. So they usually try to jump on that, even if there's no guarantee that they do well in the AP exam. Hey, it's a chance. You get the opportunity to make college life easier. So you'll see pretty much the same people. Yeah.
Now, pivoting off of that, you mentioned gaming. Like, so why did you switch initially from console to PC? Because we obviously started on Wii and then eventually Xbox and a little bit of PlayStation 2, but not a lot. but like what made that switch for you? What was there like a game or a moment where you're like, man, Xbox sucks?
It wasn't. I don't really hate console gaming at all. It was more so that like, I mean, we're not rich, and we separated like room wise, right?
Yeah.
So we used to just kind of convene into one room, play some games, and that would be it. Or if like one of us wasn't available, it would just be one of us playing on it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's hard to keep doing that when you get more friends to play games with, because I mean, everyone's gonna have different experiences and stuff. And console wars, it's like, oh, I love playing this game. You want to like add my like Xbox gamer tag, and they're like, oh, sorry, I play on PlayStation. It's like, that's just is whatever. But I mean,
it's a very annoying barrier.
Yeah. So, and constantly having to buy consoles, especially if like you and I wanted to play, and maybe we wanted our own friends to play with, own games to play with, fighting over that would be just a nightmare, because then it'd either be buy 2 consoles for each generation, or buy 1 console and fight about who gets to play at what time. So, I mean, around that time, I kind of discovered PC games, and I was still kind of an idiot when it came to them. So, like, I didn't know too much about it. I think Smite might have been one of my first.
I would
MOBA.
say, yeah.
Yeah, like that was one of my first, and well, I didn't have like any friends that I could play with necessarily. It's still just a fun game to play, and I didn't have to worry about you coming in and being like, Mom says it's my turn to play the game.
Yeah.
Because you could just get it on your PC.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when I got to high school, and this was around the time I kind of started playing League, which, worst decision of my life, but like, you know, League being an up and comer around that time, decided to some degree like it was really easy to find friends. Basically, any person that played on the PC that you could find in high school back then like at least knew about League.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So like I remember I went to, I think it was some kind of club meeting or something, and this was when I first met a lot of the people that I became good friends with. I added probably 4 to 5 people in that situation alone, and then through them I then found even more people both within and without the high school. Like, it was really easy to find anyone to play League, and once that kicked off, there was like no more reason to go back to console. For me, League was like, at the time, it was really fun. It was all I really cared to play. It was whatever. If I wanted to play another game and I didn't have the console, then too bad. So
yeah, that's interesting, because I remember because I obviously, being the little brother that I am, switched after, and I got on Smite after.
Yeah.
But I remember my switch was more just, I don't know, in my opinion, I feel like console gaming has slowly shifted to being very one-person focused, because I remember you used to be able to play, like Halo, for example, multiplayer, at like in the same room. You could play you have 4 controllers, you played Halo. Nowadays, a lot of the games, like Fortnite, is 1 person. Warzone, 1 person. And these are now the big popular games. I get there's obviously always sports games. There's obviously always like games like Mario. You can usually play 4 players.
You mean like
Marios.
Local like
exactly, local co-op.
Yeah.
I'm saying I think those games have severely declined, because I think it's just gotten to the point now where people are like, well, you can play online.
Oh, yeah.
So just play online with your friends. And I think monetarily that's better for the gaming industry, because then each person has to buy their own console to play.
Well, it's also like a shift in the times. I mean, like your audience primarily, maybe at first was kids who can go to people's house on a regular basis and all that. But I mean, now you've got like plenty of adults that also want to play your games. I think I remember seeing that the average age of gamers now is like 35. So
yeah.
You have all these adults. The main problem is that you can't always be going to people's houses just to play a game. You've got work, you've got life. Some people start having families that they've got to like actually care for. So you want to hit like obviously both sides of that, adults and kids. Well, if you hit the kids and just say like, oh, local co-op is the focus.
I'm just gonna clip that together. If you hit the kids. I'm just going to clip that, and then I'm going to post it everywhere. If you hit the kids.
Just make a shirt out of it. There we go. If you hit the kids, Jared, 2021. No, but if you target, that nothing I say is going to sound good. If the kids are your primary focus of your marketing strategy for this,
they're the primary audience.
Yeah, then like either strategy works. If you switch to online, both families have to buy some, so there are going to be some discrepancies there. But for kids, and families that can, they can easily just go home and be like, I'll see you online or something like that. They go home, maybe they finish their homework or they blow it off. I don't know, kids or whatever. And then they just sit
We don't know
down.
how kids are nowadays.
Yeah, the kids. I'm so old now. No, but you sit down, you just plug in your headset to your controller or your console or whatever, and then you just jump online, text your friend real quick. They get online, and then you guys just get into a party real quick, and you're good. It's similar experience. Like, yeah, it's not the same as meeting together, but if you wanted to meet together, you could. And some games still offer that, like local co-op. It's just not a focus anymore.
Yeah.
But like, if you want to have the adults as well included in your audience, these people that are legacy gamers, have been with you for a while, or maybe just people that have been into like first person shooters and you want to bring them like to your new game that might be interesting. Well, meeting in person isn't as much of a thing anymore, so online is the way to go.
Yeah.
I mean, pandemic aside, like if you can just go home after a long work day and just sit down, put on a headset, and boom, you're talking with your friends and having a blast. That's the simplest, easiest way to just to have that fun multiplayer experience. So,
Yeah, that's interesting.
yeah.
But so what's your take on like, it's interesting, it's always been interesting to me is like the cost difference. Is like a console is obviously expensive, but like setting up a whole PC is very expensive.
There's memes on the internet all over the place nowadays where like the quote unquote PC master race is kind of like meta joking on themselves, where they'll say like it'll be memes where it's like a console, or it's like, ha, stupid console gamer spending $500 on your console that can't even play this high-end game. Why don't you be more like me, who spent $3,000 on their console to just barely play this high-end game? It's like, yeah, I mean, you can go for budget builds, obviously, but I think any budget build PC that can play games pretty well is still going to be more expensive than a console. Like my laptop upstairs right now, which is like, I think Ale said it was like a generation behind in most of the stuff it's got, but that's fine for most games these days. But he said, but that went for like $1,200, and a console is what, $500 at like worst or something.
But then you also got to weigh the like lifespan.
Yeah.
Consoles generally won't last as long
Well,
as a computer. Usually you can get a well-kept computer. If you like, for example, if you set up a full-on PC, I know you use a laptop, but like a full-on PC, you can probably keep that through 2 console generations. So in theory, it should pay for itself. Or well, it should equal out. It shouldn't pay for itself. It should equal out.
Yeah, like mine up there will probably last like, or the one I had before this that I gave to Ale, I think it was in like 4 or 5 years of use, and now he's using it, and he's using it pretty well. I mean, some games are giving problems. He can't play Monster Hunter as much anymore.
Yeah, well, that's also a high-end graphics
Yeah,
game.
and it's an old. It's getting to be a really old computer, but consoles. I mean, yeah, I think you can carry a console for a while. We had our 360 like well into like the Xbox One period until it finally hit the red ring of death, and you had the PS. What was it? You still have the PS4, right?
Yeah, I don't really touch it, but yeah.
You've had the PS4 since basically it came out, and it still works fine. So
yeah.
I think there may not be too much of a difference in the age of console versus PC. It might just be that you have to update your console because new games will start updating to the generation that it's in. So more games are going to be coming out for PS5, but not PS4. Whether it's because of limitations that the PS5 addresses, or just because it's the hot new console that everyone's going to have anyway.
And that's how companies usually do it. They'll be like, you have to get the new game, but it's only available on the PS17.
Because Sony obviously pairs with these games, and they're like, if you make it available only on the PS5, we'll support you or whatever.
Yeah,
or
we'll fund the money.
We'll advertise your game for you, or we'll throw it on the front page of our shop or whatever.
Or they always do that, like, you buy a PS5 and you get the game free.
Yeah, and they have like promotions like that for the really big name games that they're excited to be adding to their roster. So
yeah. I'm amazed Xbox never really did that. I mean, maybe they did and I just didn't notice.
They did. They had some special Xbox promotions, I believe, with Halo to some degree. I mean, I think... No, that was Call of Duty. I was thinking of like Game Fuel with Mountain Dew, but no, I think that was Call of Duty. But I think they did Game Fuel was paired with like Xbox. It was like Mountain Dew, Doritos, Xbox, and Call of Duty were like all together in a whole thing about like fuel yourself for the game or whatever nonsense they're saying. But then I think Xbox and Halo were pretty like close knit for like a while, just because I mean it was an
yeah.
Xbox exclusive for
Yeah.
most of its life. I don't know if
It
it's
still is, yeah.
well, like the Master Chief Collection is on PC now.
Yeah,
So-
but it still has never crossed to PS5.
That's
And
fair.
I don't think it ever will.
Yeah, but I
because
mean, I think they've
Bungie-
released like promotions of like special Xboxes and controllers and stuff. I don't know. I don't remember too many of them. I dropped out of Halo after 4, I believe. So.
Yeah, you and I played 4. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's always an interesting argument. People are like PS5 or PlayStation more in general, and Xbox. And I mean, honestly, I think PlayStation's a better operating system. I think it's just a better run console.
Mm-hmm.
But I still hold it true. Uncharted and Little Big Planet are not nearly on par with Halo
That's fair.
and Gears of War. Both those two games, which are both, I believe, Xbox exclusive. I know Halo is. I think Gears of War is. Those two games, I think, are just better than the two games on PlayStation. That's just my opinion. So I think Xbox has the better games, but I definitely get the argument PlayStation is a little bit higher end, I think.
Yeah.
It's a little bit nicer.
I mean, there was that whole like I remember back in the day, there was the whole talk of just the security between the two. People were always saying like, "Oh, PlayStation's like
Got
online
hacked.
is free, but they get hacked all the time, whereas Xbox you have to pay for, and apparently it's better." But I mean, that argument kind of died quickly. I don't know if it was because like Xbox got hacked and people were like had to eat their words or something. But
Yeah.
do you have to pay for PlayStation now?
Yeah, you do play.
Yeah.
Well, it's weird. You have regular PlayStation you can play online except for certain games. So you have to play PlayStation Plus, which is like I think $60 a year, which actually isn't too bad. It's not as I don't know the prices for Xbox Live, but it's interesting because like you pay for that and you can play more multiplayer games, which is a bit weird. Like you can have online and games can download and stuff with regular PlayStation, but you have to get PlayStation Plus to play, I believe, like Call of Duty or I don't know, like just online games, Fortnite, for example. You have to play games like that. But yeah, it's a weird situation because like I've always never been a fan of the fact that you have to buy a $100 console and then also pay for the online. I've always thought it should be you pay for the console and everyone has the online.
Yeah.
But I understand. It's also they need to have a way to keep making money because I'm sure like after the first like year, 2 years of the console coming out, I'm sure people who buy the console drops.
Because you've got to pay for like the development of the console, building the console, got to repay those costs. It's not on the same degree, but it's kind of like how, you know, a movie puts a bunch of investment right up front to make the movie, and they can only expect to make that back after it's out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the console comes out